People of LinkedIn. Good morning, Misbah. How are you doing?
Good morning, Cheryl. I'm doing okay. Oh, I'm suddenly losing my voice.
I'm sorry to have gotten you up so early on a Friday morning. Literally, as I was driving in to where I am today, there was this song came on saying, "I'm not at work today because I'm on holiday." And I think, given that you've stepped in right at the last minute, you must have felt like you were going to have an easy Friday morning, and then here you are, right?
I did actually, yes. I was in bed doing a little bit of doom scrolling, as you do, which is so wrong. And then your message suddenly appeared, and I thought, oh, but you know what? It's meant to be, so it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning. If you're joining us live, please do say good morning in the chat. Let us know how you're coping in the heat wave if you're in the UK. Whereabouts are you, Misbah? I can't remember. You East Midlands
I'm in Stoke-on-Trent, so in the Midlands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stoke-on-Trent. For some reason I thought you were further east on that. So not too far from me, actually. I'm in Birmingham this morning. And how is the weather? It's looking very bright.
Oh, glorious. Isn't it going to be hotter even today? I don't know. I can't keep up with the temperatures, but I think it might be slightly a few degrees higher. But you know what? We've got to really acknowledge this and embrace it, because it's going to be gone. And then all of a sudden it's going to be, oh, it's too cold. It's too cold. So let's just
embrace it.
Enjoy it.
Yeah. Do you know what it is as well? You make a good point there. And I think there's something to do with, and people notice, so I'm not in my usual black t-shirt. So I most people that see me, most days I wear black, right? But there's something about when you said, like, we've got to embrace it. And there's something I think about how we, sort of like adapt to our surroundings, if that makes sense. So I said to somebody, I said, what I've realized I need to do is I just need to wear my holiday clothes. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I need to adapt, and be flexible for the climate that we've got. We haven't got the AC, but we've got holiday clothes. That's what I'm doing. Good morning. Apologies, I can't see all of the usernames that are coming in, but good morning. And how is the weather where you are? Good morning, Manawa. Good morning. How is the weather? How are you coping in the heat? Good morning to you both. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, so I've got Misbah has stepped in at the last minute. So for anybody that noticed, I was supposed to have Kay O'Neill with me, but we're talking about a similar topic, just from a slightly different angle. So Kay is an incredible ERG co-chair. Misbah works with ERGs, and I met Misbah through the work that you were doing at the time at Serco. And so we're still going to talk about the power of community, which is something that ERGs absolutely bring. But we're also going to talk a little bit about South Asian Heritage Month and all kinds of things. Whatever you want to talk about, put it in the chat. If you've got questions for Misbah, what was she planning to do before she thankfully jumped onto this LinkedIn Live? The amazing Misbah. I know it is the amazing Misbah. I've got Misbah with me. Misbah, how's your week been so far? How's the week been? We're here at Friday.
Yeah, so my week's been pretty busy. I was down your area actually. I attended an event in Birmingham, and it was such a different event to what I normally attend. So it wasn't in a plush kind of venue. There wasn't lots of free food and nice drinks, etc. It was at a school, and it was about girls in construction. And I will just tell you, Cheryl, that they say you should never work with animals or children. Yeah. I absolutely beg to differ. I had such a humbling time with these year 6 females, and we talked about construction and all the things that are attached to it. And it was so, like I said, it was such a different experience to what I normally kind of have when I'm at events. Yeah. So I've been doing that, and then lots of other kind of bits and bats in between as well. So it's been a steady week, I'd like to say.
Yeah, I love that. And I love, what you're saying there in terms of like different types of events as well, and different people. I feel sometimes when you're in the corporate space, we actually have quite a narrow view of society. And like you say, it's not until you maybe go and like meet, young people in schools, or people in, and I know, like, based on your work, meet people in, prisons or in other parts of society, you get actually a very different perspective on reality, right? Not just the glossy view that we get in the corporate world. So that's really interesting. So I feel like I need to give you a proper intro. So we met at Serco
We did.
Which is, I know you were there for 20 years. I can't believe that. So I've got a bio for you, which so I have a tradition on this show that Claude writes your bio, Misbah. Okay. So Claude didn't have very long, but he still did quite well, right? So, well, hopefully. So I'm going to read out the bio that Claude wrote for you, and you get to score it out of 10. So today I'm joined by Misbah Gulzar. Misbah is the founder and director of Equitas Consultancy Services, where she helps organizations move beyond performative DEI towards meaningful, measurable change. She's worked across corporate, public sector and criminal justice settings, and her approach is shaped by lived experience as well as professional practice. She talks about intersectionality not as theory, but as the reality of how she's navigated workplaces and institutions. Her focus is building cultures where people don't have to code switch, mask, or question whether they belong. Welcome, Misbah.
Thank you.
How did Claude do?
Yeah, he did good. He did good. Lastminute.com, he did good.
Yeah.
Claude.
Well done. And good morning to everybody that's joined. Now, we are in South Asian history. I always call it South Asian history. South Asian Heritage Month. We're in South Asian Heritage Month. For anybody that doesn't know, do you want to just explain to people before we get into your background and all of that? South Asian Heritage Month has moved, so some people might not realize that the dates have moved. So maybe just bring people up to speed in that, first of all.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of things that happens, kind of events that happen in July and August. And originally it was kind of 2 months or close to 2 months in duration. But I think with all the other kind of events that are happening, I think it was more important to have a shorter duration but make it more impactful. And I think sometimes when you have an event and it goes on for more than perhaps say a month, you lose that impact, and people there's a bit of fatigue around it. And I kind of want to use that word when I'm speaking about South Asian Heritage Month, but I imagine that fatigue would be around any area if it continues. So I think it's good that they've actually decided that it needs to be around a month's time, which works well.
Yeah, and also we had Jasmine on as well last week, and she was explaining about, I guess, trying to beat the summer holidays, so making sure that actually there's time to feed it into schools as well, like during July, like before people break up. So, it's a win-win. Hopefully it's a win-win. So tell us about your background and the relevance to South Asian Heritage Month, and also your journey now to working for yourself and what made you do that.
So my background in a nutshell is I was born in Pakistan. I came here when I was around 3 years old with my family. I was brought up in a northern mill town, Burnley, for people who might be familiar with it. And the environment that I grew up in was fairly liberal but conservative at the same time. I know that's a little bit of a kind of how can it be both, but it actually was. I was the only member of my family that was able to go to university, so I had that privilege. And I sort of continued with my education and stuff. And I left home for a number of reasons, and just started to kind of, create my own journey, do my own thing, which at the time was quite a difficult decision to make, but it's one that I'm glad that I made, and I would probably make it again if that was to be the case today. So I'm the children of South Asian immigrants. My dad used to work in the mills. My mum was a housewife, and like I said, my siblings, they came to this country when they were slightly older, so they accessed some level of education, but not a huge amount. So that basically in a nutshell is my
Yeah, incredible. And I know that you were at Serco for a long time, and obviously that's where we met. Talk about, I guess, what made you eventually kind of end up with founding Equitas. What it was that made you want to do that, and the sort of work that you do at the moment.
So I think it was a very kind of brave thing, I guess. I was putting my head above the parapet. I'd just been made redundant. Obviously applying for jobs. The job market at the moment isn't great for people who are experiencing that. I've not really experienced redundancy to this level. So all of that was very, very new. So I guess when you get when you get placed in a situation like that without having that preparation for it, you've got two options. You either sit there and kind of think, oh well, things will happen and I'll just sit back and do whatever, or you actually just get out there and do what you need to do. And as hard as this journey is, and it continues to be, and I'm sure it will be for the next kind of couple of years, it's probably the best thing that I've done. And in terms of challenges as well, it's one of my biggest challenges. We always talk about that as humans in terms of, the different chapters in your life and what you experience. And I've experienced a lot, as a lot of people have. Life is a journey and it's got its ups and downs. But I think this particular period of my life is something that I've never had to navigate before. So everything is new, from setting up the business, from kind of being in spaces that I didn't think I would be able to be in, but actually having that privilege to be in those spaces. So yeah, it is difficult, but I'm so glad that I did do what I did.
Yeah. Incredible. And just in terms of South Asian History Month, before we get onto that, because I know we spoke a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, about an event that you were trying to pull together. Talk about what you've seen that works really well when it comes to South Asian Heritage Month. So for anybody that's watching this, because I know still some organisations, because it's one of the newer awareness months, not every organisation has really kind of got themselves sorted out in terms of what to do for South Asian Heritage Month. So what are some of the things that work really well, and maybe for organisations that have got nothing planned, etc., what can they do quite easily to to just do something and to start those conversations?
I think before I answer that question directly, I do need to kind of say, in terms of any events, whatever that event is around, the key thing is about raising awareness. The key thing is about putting it on the map. So as you've just said, South Asian Heritage Month is quite a new concept. It's not something that's completely embedded either within society or within schools or universities. It's getting there, obviously. That we've got lots of events that are happening, but I think in the first instance we need to acknowledge that it's not just for South Asian community. It's fully inclusive, and without that inclusivity, there isn't a huge kind of purpose or impact behind it. In terms of what organisations can do, I think, we always revert, it's similar to Black History Month, we always revert back to food, because food brings everybody together. Whilst that is amazing and it's a key part of the South Asian heritage and it's something that makes us who we are, it's only one aspect of it. So whilst organisations are doing events that, maybe ticking the box, and again, that's a phrase that I don't use lightly, that is fine, but I think we need to just go a little bit deeper and start exploring some key things that maybe not as comfortable, but something that needs that discussion and needs to be aired out. I think organisations do have a responsibility in doing that, and I guess not just for South Asian Month, I guess for Black History Month and all the other kind of key events that happen within the night calendar. But I think it's something that organisations have to really speak to their employees. What is it that they want? It may be that something that they want to have a particular focus group on a specific area about being in work, and how, being South Asian, what challenges that they kind of come up against, and how the organisation potentially that may not be aware of those challenges really assist them in their day-to-day work.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. Yeah, focus groups and listening sessions and things like that are really useful. Because you're absolutely right with the food. Now, I'm never gonna argue against having South Asian food, right? Because I love it. But you're right that food often is just like the surface. It's the surface level. You want to get to below the iceberg, below the surface, right? So food maybe on the top is fine for bringing people together, and maybe just getting people to come along. If people hear that there are, we need something else apart from just samosas. I don't know if people hear that there are, I don't know, roti and something. I love roti, you see. So if people hear that there is something else, maybe, or some Indian sweets or something, yes, then maybe they'll come. But as Misbah was saying, let's take it further. Let's maybe have a topic that's going to be discussed, or some other resources, books, etc. Or I'm always sort of talking about things like TED Talks that people can watch and then discuss afterwards. And there's all kinds of things, I think, if people get creative, right?
And I think in this environment as well, currently what we're experiencing that we haven't really experienced, it's so important. And these opportunities, so an amazing opportunity for organisations and senior leaders to actually sit down and say, look, how can we support our South Asian community? You know, we understand some of the things that they're going through. Not everybody. I'm not, you know, saying that everyone is experiencing difficulties, but there are pockets of British society that are experiencing some huge challenges on a day-to-day basis. So as organisations, how can we address those? And I don't want to get political because this is not a political podcast, but it's a key thing that I really want to kind of make a point of, I guess.
Yeah. Absolutely. Love a good book recommendation. Somebody has said here. I think I recommended, did I recommend one on last week's? I don't know if I recommended The Good Immigrant that was edited by Nikesh Shukla. That's a really good one. I don't know if you've got any book recommendations or any other resources, Misbah, that people could maybe go to for South Asian Heritage Month. And it also was mentioned last week, there is the South Asian Heritage Month website where you can go to for resources, right? If anybody's like struggling for that as well.
And I think that's probably the key resource that, you know, I think that's your first point that you need to kind of look at, because the resources within that on that page is phenomenal. So that's a starting point. And then obviously explore whatever specific area or niche that you want to explore.
Yeah. One of the questions that I did ask at the end of last week's, if anybody was watching, because we got onto Bollywood last week, and so I was asking people what their favourite Bollywood film was, but maybe this week I'm going to ask, what's your favourite food? So if you were doing a South Asian Heritage Month, what food would you want to see the organisation bring? So put that in the chats for me. And let's go beyond samosas, right? Misbah, what would it be for you? What do you think organisations could do well if they were getting food in?
So I was born in Lahore, and Lahore is super famous for biryani. So I think it would have to be biryani, and it's quite a difficult dish to make if it's made correctly. So not anyone can just like put a biryani together. So I think for me it would be biryani because it's got a lot of definitely biryani.
Yeah. So my husband loves a biryani as well. So food really useful starter. But what's really interesting as well, when you said there about your background being from Lahore, etc. It's can you use food to go deeper? And that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, even if you are an organisation that's only putting food on, can you use that? There's another biryani fan as well in the comments, Manawar. Can you use that to go deeper into understanding of people and raising awareness of people and what's important to people, right? And values and things like that. Is really the key. I'm going to talk about, on one of your posts recently, you described attending an event where there was no code switching needed, right? Which is just, it's so lovely sometimes when we're in spaces like that. So I'm going to get into what it was about that space, you know, why you think there was no code switching and how workplaces can do, you know, create the same sort of like, you know, psychological safety if we create that. Wildcard dosa. Manawar's coming out with all of the dishes today. I've not heard of dosa. Can you explain what that is for me?
So I can I'm not sure if I'm going to get this right, but it is a South Indian delicacy, and I believe it's made of lentils and stuff, but I may be incorrect.
Okay.
Sorry, I should know. But
well, should you though? But that's the thing about South Asian Heritage Month, and it's a bit like Black History Month, right? It's not a monolith. That's the thing. Like, you know, our guest from last week, Jasmine, was explaining in South Asian Heritage Month. South Asia includes, I think she said 10 or 11 countries, was it? I think. So it's a lot, right? And even in terms of the foods, and that's why I say it's beyond just samosas, right? Because it's a lot of different countries, and even within that, then different cultures and different regions that will have different dishes. And, you know, and in all of that, there's even a lot of history in that, in terms of like as we got into last week, you know, the divisions of those countries and the history of empire and colonialism and all of that. Like, it's so layered in terms of these different cultures. Let's get on to code switching. So that event that you went to where you said there wasn't any code switching needed, what was it about that you think that made it feel like, actually, do you know what, people can just come here and be themselves? And, you know, what do you think are some of the barriers to creating that in workplaces?
So the event that I attended was hosted by EMERGE, which is a ERG community across the UK, headed up by Edward Adolphin, who was amazing, and I might go on and speak about him later on. But it was an event that was held at the BBC in the Mailbox, and it was around South Asian Heritage Month, and all the guests were from a South Asian or Black background, and the event, you know, within my post, I talked about code switching, and I think there is always a level of code switching that you do wherever you arrive. If we're talking about events, you've either got to switch it up or switch it down or go somewhere in the middle, depending on who it is that you're in the room with. But I felt on this particular occasion there was not any need to do that. I felt that everyone was on that same level of understanding and acceptance and tolerance, and there was no need to explain anything away. The conversations that I exchanged with individuals there were very easy, and actually I've not experienced anything like that before, where I could have just be, and they say, oh, you've got to be your authentic self. I agree to that to a certain extent, but I was able just to be my authentic self and be able to communicate with these people, interact with these people, and made some really good kind of links shortly after that. I think in terms of organizations and how they can make their spaces less uncomfortable, if that's the right word, for people of different backgrounds, I guess again it's just about raising awareness. It's about understanding your employees, and it's about understanding the nuances that we've all got. And I know that's sometimes maybe a little bit of a big ask, because there's so many nationalities, there's so many countries that, you know, we come from, and I guess for some organizations that might be a bit of a task, but it just starts with small things. It just starts with acknowledgement, and I think it's just really important, and I guess for us to achieve that, it's got to be centered around leadership and the training that they get access to, because we can't always say, well, that the organization isn't doing what it's doing, but if we're not equipping them with the correct tools, then we've got no redress then to say, actually, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So it's a difficult one in terms of code switching. Like I said, it's not something that we're going to ever eradicate. It's always going to happen, but there's a way there's a way that organizations can manage it appropriately without being too kind of obvious about it as well, I guess.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I was listening as you were talking about the event that you went to, and almost like the ease, you know, it sounded like you just felt at ease. And I don't know where, I'm guessing maybe it was a combination of the people that were in the room, but maybe just also like the level of conversation, and maybe the level of almost like unseen understanding that there was like across the room. Do you know what I mean? And I guess the challenge is, how is it possible to create that in organizations? And I think it is actually. And interestingly, I think things like South Asian Heritage Month, and, you know, whether it be International Women's Day, Black History Month, and all of these other things, what they're trying to do, because they're trying to raise awareness, but I think there's also something about individuals taking ownership then for learning more, you know. So maybe you've had like your awareness raised in these particular months and days, but then learning more, so that actually, you know, you help to create that ease for other people. Do you know what I mean? Like when they mention something, you can have a conversation with it, because maybe you've done a little bit of digging and you can still be curious, but you've learned a little bit, and you're not sort of pulling a face to say, oh, that's weird, or do you know what I mean? It's like,
no, absolutely.
How do we make other people comfortable?
And definitely, and I think it's also about the culture that's been created within that organization. So is it easy for us to have those conversations? So I think in terms of EDI, the key thing is about conversations, is about being able to speak to somebody that doesn't look like you or doesn't have the same background as you, to ask them questions in a sensitive way in order to understand their background and their beliefs and everything else. So I think the culture piece is quite a big one as well, I guess.
Absolutely. And, you know, and lots of I always talk about the self-learning, and this is why I'm always recommending things like books, etc. So that book, The Good Immigrant, if anybody's heard of it, it's a collection of, I want to say, 21 essays. So it's different immigrants to the UK,
Right.
of all ethnicities and nationalities, but they're then talking, and it includes, for example, a chapter by Riz Ahmed, the actor. And so if you get it on audio book, he actually narrates it. But then they're talking through their different experiences. And it's really interesting. I'd really encourage people to read it if it's not something that you've come across before, because I think there's something in, you know, by people reading the lived experiences of other people, you know, that also raises the awareness such that it then allows them to have, you know, easier and more informed conversations with people that are from different cultural backgrounds. And I think that also then helps for, you know, individuals that aren't in the majority in a workplace setting to feel more comfortable and more at ease, because actually, especially if they see people making an effort to learn more about their culture, do you know what I mean? I think that makes them feel more welcome, right?
Absolutely. And it's all about conversation starters. So, you know, talking about a book that you've both read is absolutely a conversation starter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a great book. Thank you for that endorsement, LinkedIn user. It is a really good book. Okay, we're going to get on to, let's talk about ERGs, Employee Resource Groups, networks, because you were involved, I want to say, were you involved in leading the network at Serco? Yeah. So you've been involved on the inside, and now you're supporting ERGs as well through Emerge.
Yeah, so I was involved with Circles, one of the co-chairs, and I, you know, whilst I was there, myself and my other co-chair, Tansy Cox, we really drove the agenda appropriately, and she's doing an amazing job currently, and at the ERG. At Serco is going from strength to strength. I'm really happy to say that, you know, I was kind of part of that. But yeah, it's really so important.
Yeah. And so in terms of, I guess, you know, we talk about the power of community. I guess just talk about, you know, why ERGs are so important in organizations, especially, you know, if we link it to that whole thing about people not code switching and feeling comfortable and belonging. What is that role that ERGs can play in organization? You know, why are they so important, and why are you so passionate about still working with them through Emerge?
So I think ERGs within organisations are paramount for an organisation to be successful, whether that be on a business level or whether that just be on a personal people level. ERGs do some amazing kind of middle work, if that's the right term to use. So they're the people between your senior leaders and between the rest of the organisation. So they're that middle ground. You know, a lot of organisations have got some really amazing HR teams, and they've probably got some good kind of EDI managers that are looking after some of the areas when it comes to ERGs, but there's specific things that only ERG members can really support and guide appropriately. So when we're thinking about organisations looking at their policies, you know, it's all well and good for HR to sit down and say, yes, that meets the recommended guidelines, and we've touched this and we've touched that. And they've done it from quite an insular perspective. So this is where ERGs step in. This is where you get their opinion, you get their guidance, you get their, like, actually, can we remove this paragraph because it's not going to be suitable for whatever reason. So that kind of voice, that power of the ERGs is so important. And if organisations can work alongside rather than ERGs being on the periphery, I think it's changed now. I think, you know, 5-10 years ago, it was just an add-on and it was just on the outside of the organisation. There wasn't much budgeting around it. There really wasn't any kind of importance placed around it. Whereas I think now organisations are understanding the importance of ERGs and how they can benefit them in such a positive way, because actually you want to kind of embody the values that your organisation says that they have, and in order to do that you do need ERGs to support you along the way. And I think, you know, it's about you know, keeping your employees, it's about meeting all their needs, and how can you do that as a group of senior leadership from your perspective? It's just not going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, something about internally the sense of community that being part of an ERG
Yeah,
brings. Especially, I was talking to somebody recently. What organization? I can't remember which organization, but they were saying that it wasn't until they started the ERG that, colleagues sort of almost came out of the woodwork, and they were like, "Oh, we didn't realize that there were so many other, black and brown people
yeah,
working here." Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like, and until they saw that there was like a collection of people like them, they kind of felt that they just had to like hide themselves a little bit and not be as confident in the workplace. So there's all of that thing, just that sense of like knowing that there is more than one of you, kind of
yes,
almost like gives you the confidence to sort of like feel that actually you can make a difference in the organization, and that you do belong there as well, actually.
yeah,
But what about, let's talk a little bit about Emerge. And I know Ed is doing like some amazing work through Emerge.
yeah,
Let's talk about the importance of, because Emerge really is what I call like a network of networks, right?
yeah,
So it's a network for employee networks and
yeah.
employee network leaders, which I know some people are like, what? But I think community like that is really important. So employee network leaders having some way to connect. So just talk
Yeah.
about why you think that's important as well.
So I joined Emerge a couple of years ago now, and I think it was it's kind of early beginnings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was employed by Circle at that point, so I was attending events and meetings and really kind of got into the whole ethos of what it means to be part of an ERG community. So it's not just about me or you; it's about us together, collectively supporting each other, because we're actually our aim is the same. Our objectives are the same, so we have to support each other. And then shortly after that time, I was made redundant, and I had to make a decision in terms of, do I still fit within this group? I'm no longer employed. I'm no longer part of an ERG. I'm no longer co-chair an ERG. Do I still fit within this group of professionals? And am I allowed, kind of thing, I guess was going through my head. Obviously, I chose that it would be beneficial for me to be part of it. And I'm glad I made that decision. In terms of Emerge, if I can just speak very quickly about Emerge, there's a huge there's a high number of amazing people within Emerge that are supporting each other, that are doing some phenomenal work within the organisations up and down the UK. And I think that is something that can't be lightly said. It has a lot of significance. And I think without that kind of the connections that have made, that community that we've almost built within ourselves. I mean, we're all from different backgrounds in terms of our professional kind of identity. We're all different, but we come together and we support each other, and the events that are held, there's opportunities there to network with people that you feel that you should network with. So I think that Emerge has been something, it's been a bit of a lifesaver for me, if I'm being perfectly honest. And being told that you're made redundant and then that's it, and that the whole redundancy thing is another story. But to be able to be kept safe by a group of people, and to be able to still be kind of wanted, I don't know if that's the right word or not, but you feel that you belong, you feel part of something, you feel part of something really kind of positive, and everyone's there to support you, and there's no kind of, well, you can't do this or you can't do that. The support has been phenomenal. So I think without working with Emerge and doing some of the things that I do with Emerge and being part of that community has been, I guess it's been a bit of a lifesaver for me, and pushed me even further. So I'm really thankful to Ed again. Ed is phenomenal, and the work that he's doing and the reach that he's got, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible, honestly. And as you were talking there, it reminded me, because I have, and I'm sure you do as well, but I have lots of conversations with ERG leads that are facing redundancy, or there's restructuring, or they are made redundant. And it's fantastic that almost like it almost sounds as though like Emerge as a community is kind of held you up, right? It's kind of, do you know what I mean? Like, and it's been a real sort of source of support, which is really lovely, because ERG leads aren't immune from like the changes that are going on in organizations, especially with the current political climate, being against DI and all of that. It's unfortunately in some organizations, the ERGs are almost being kind of caught up in the crosswinds of that. Do you know what I mean? And so, but it's so, that is one of the reasons it's great to have a network where ERGs can come together, as you say, and support each other as peers. I absolutely love it. It's one of the reasons that we do the summit. It's the same thing. There is something about creating community of people that are trying to do this work. It's hard work.
Yeah.
Like hard work, and people are doing it typically on top of their day jobs. So it sounds as though it's phenomenal. We'll have to remember to put a link in the comments to Emerge for anybody that's interested in it. One of the questions that I've got interesting, and I know that you said when you sort of talked about employee resource groups almost being like doing the work of that middle, almost like being a bridge between, like, say, the leadership of the organization and then, on the ground, what is it that people need? Do you think that leaders are almost like let off the hook? Because, do you know what I mean? Like, because the networks are doing this work,
Yeah, there probably is an element of that, because if you've got a very good ERG that are doing all the work that perhaps is part of your responsibility as a senior leader, then I guess you're going to step back a little bit, which is absolutely the wrong thing to do, because we all know that sponsorship of the ERGs is so important. If you haven't got your senior leadership that are actively and visibly engaged within the ERG group, then the work is going to be even harder than it actually is. So whilst if you are in an organization and you have got an amazing ERG, it's key for you to be part of that. You want to be part of that. You want to be kind of sitting alongside your ERG members and supporting them. Maybe not like 24/7, but your presence needs to be seen in order for that work to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I had an interesting conversation. I've had quite a few interesting conversations this week with ERG leads, HR leads, just all kinds of people in different parts of the kind of, supporting ERGs and this kind of work. And I tell you, when, as you say, like when you haven't got a good sponsor on board, or any sponsor at all, it's even harder. And I sometimes think that, as I said to one ERG lead this week, you've got to really protect your energy. You've really got to protect your energy and your time. And sometimes I think this is the kind of advice that peers can give to each other, right? In terms of how to get through when maybe that leadership and that support isn't there. How do you get through? Do you just step away from the chair's role, which I know some people do, or do you actually find your support in the community? So it's so useful.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's really important for ERGs to understand that there is a line that they need to stay behind when it comes to the work that they do. So when that work crosses that line, that's when it becomes dangerous. So as an ERG, you've got a role and a responsibility, but then your HR department have got another role and responsibility. So you've got to be very, very careful. And as passionate as we are as ERG leads and ERG members, and we want the best for our employees, we've got to be very, very careful that we don't cross that line inadvertently, of course. But I think that's key, because we've got a HR department. They've got a huge responsibility, and they need to hold a lot of that, which should not rest on our shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely.
The serious and the big things.
Yeah, and also maybe I need to do an episode on this. There's something about how do you know when you need to step back from this work because your organization isn't serious about it, right? It's a really hard one, but I feel that sometimes, and it may just be that the organization's just not ready, they're not at that stage in their own, because, organizations are on their own kind of like maturity journey around inclusion and belonging. Yeah. And I feel that you sometimes have ERGs starting in some of these organizations when, is the organization ready? I'm not sure, and it's like, there's no sponsor, there's no budget, there's no support from HR. It's like, maybe now is not the right time for you to even be investing your time in that organization doing this. I think there is maybe a conversation to be had about that in terms of when is it just almost like a bridge too far in an organization that is showing you all of the signs that they're not yet serious about this work, you know?
I think it's really important to have the foundations. If you haven't got the foundations, then there's nothing to build on. And with anything, you've got to have that strong foundational support. And that takes time. That takes sometimes years to develop and really embed. And if you haven't got that, then actually the work that you're so invested in is actually not going to come through for you. So that is key.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could actually also be detrimental to your day job as well. If that, you know what I mean? Because you know, and to your emotional well-being and all of those sorts of things. So yeah, being sort of smart about when to dial it up and when to step back. Again, this is part of the reason that it's so useful to be talking to peers and to people like Misbah that, you know, are the experts and have been doing this for many years and have seen what good looks like and have seen like a lot of the challenges and things like that. One of the things that you talked about was listening. So you talked about maybe whether it's focus groups for South Asian Heritage Month. And I know that when you were at Circle, I think you did listening sessions. What does that look like? So for anybody that's watching, that's maybe thinking, oh, you know, we'd maybe quite like to run a focus group or a listening session. I mean, apart from getting Misbah in, because obviously that's what they can do. They can get you in to come and run it. What does it look like when it's done well? But maybe what are some of the risks around that? Because I can imagine some organizations kind of like jumping up to do it and it may be going horribly wrong. So just maybe give a bit of practical advice about that.
Yeah, I think listening circles, focus groups, whatever terminology that you want to use to describe them are key in terms of employee engagement. So I think depending on what the subject is, it's so important to get your employees' perspective on it. So the listening circle is not something that we're pitting the employee against their employer. It's not a them and us scenario at all. So that's not what this is. I'm not coming into, or listening circles don't act as to divide kind of opinion. It's about bringing people together. And I guess it's more about the employee voice. So we talk about the employee voice quite a lot. We have our annual surveys that we're able to tell the organisation how good they are in certain areas, and that's amazing and that's really good, and we get a lot of insight from that data. However, it is absolutely much more impactful when you've got people sitting down and have that space to be able to be completely honest and transparent. And I guess some of the key things around the listening circles is about kind of giving them that space that they haven't previously had, giving that level of protection. So whatever we discuss within this listening circle is hugely confidential. Obviously, if there's anything that needs to be raised outside of it for whatever reason, then that will happen. But essentially, it's something that's highly confidential. But as a result of the listening circle, we take the information that we've gauged from the employees that were part of it, and then that gets delivered to the senior leadership group. So if they say, look, Misbah, what is the current kind of feeling around a certain area? You know, we've done our surveys and we've got this, but we're not quite happy about the results. Is there any work that you can do? So then once they get that information that is actually, you know, as kind of as honest as it possibly can be, given the circumstances, then obviously that's a win-win for both the employee, who's actually had an opportunity to say what they want to say, and they know that whatever they say is in confidence, and any actions from that are going to be acted upon. Because obviously what's the point in doing a listening circle if we're just going to sit there, engage, have some conversation, and then okay, that's fine, lovely meeting, and off we go. But there's got to be some consequence of that as well, and largely it's positive consequence, and it's not kind of negative. It's not about coming into an organization and looking at all the bad things that they're doing. It's not a good starting point, if I'm being honest. You've got to start from a positive one, really. And really just people sharing their experiences of what it's like, you know, as you say, and or delving into a topic. And I love one of the things I said that you said that I loved was it leading to some sort of so what, do you know what I mean? So feeding it up, so, you know, so people don't feel as though they're almost like just talking for the sake of it and then nothing happens. You know, the information will be fed up, I guess, in a sort of sanitized way. So this is what it looks like when it's done well. So, you know, absolutely. I'm guessing this is the sort of work you do with organizations, Misbah, right? Yeah, definitely. And I guess when it doesn't look well, or when it doesn't work at all, is the exact thing that I said earlier on, when you're trying to pit people against each other, and trying to create that division and try and kind of influence people and say, oh, well, you know, your organization hasn't got this, why haven't they got that? So part of the listening circle is not to impose your opinions or your judgment on the current setting. It's about allowing them to say what it is and then working with that information. But the last thing that you want to do is leave an organization in a worse place than when you arrived, if that makes sense. So you've always got to make it better, and better looks different for all different people, but there's got to be an element of, you know, I did some work and this is the benefit of it and this is the result of it, and this is what has been achieved, whether that's a small thing or on a much larger scale.
Yeah, love that. Listening, we need more listening in organisations for sure. We're going to wrap things up, and I'm gonna be asking Misbah for her one thing. What's the one thing that organisations should be doing to make belonging and to create more of a sense of community in their organisation? But thank you to everybody that has joined us so far. We had a lovely comment here from Manawar. I don't know whether Manawar is still on. Great to see you on the Cheryl Miller Show. This show has no name, but maybe
it has now. The Cheryl Miller Show. Thanks, Minerva.
Manawar said you spoke with honesty and passion. Thank you, Cheryl, for creating a platform that gives people the space to share their stories. And that's, you know, this is about like the sharing nuanced stories on here. You know, people from different kind of parts of the not just in terms of like lived experience, but different expertise within the work that we do as well. So it's been a real pleasure to have you on here, Misbah, at such short notice as well. If anybody didn't hear, we were supposed to have somebody else on who had a family emergency. So we've got Misbah on, but it's been incredible. So what is one thing that organisations can do, whether it's this month in terms of South Asian History Month or just generally in terms of making belonging more of a reality and creating more of a community in their organisations?
I think if we're staying on the theme that we've been talking about for the majority of the morning, I think it's support your ERGs. I think it's support your ERGs, not just aesthetically, but actually, you know, support them. And again, the sponsorship, senior leadership teams. You don't know how much power that you hold. You don't know how influential you are, and you need to use that in the appropriate way. But I think ERGs are amazing parts of an organisation, and they need to be supported appropriately and adequately in order for them to do the amazing work that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Support your ERGs. that's one thing that you can. You're absolutely right. Absolutely. Support your ERGs. Get behind them with that senior support. Misbah, thank you so much for joining this conversation. I know I literally dragged you in front of the camera this morning. It could have been one of those where we were literally both putting our makeup on, but here we are. It's been so incredible to listen to you. And again, to anybody that's watching, it's now the 10th of July. If you haven't done anything for South Asian Heritage Month, get Misbah in to come in and run some focus groups. You know, do something to celebrate the month before people are off on their holidays. But also, if you want to find out more about the work that Misbah does, Misbah, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Where are you online, or have you got a website?
So I do have a website, and I'll kind of send you those details in a moment. But on LinkedIn, I guess, is my main platform right now. I'm trying to work on Instagram and everything, but I'm failing a little bit, so I hate it. But I'm trying to get my head around it. But yeah, mainly LinkedIn.
Yeah. Amazing, incredible. Misbah, thank you so much for stepping in and bringing us such a rich conversation. And thank you to everybody that joined us as well live. And we had a few joining us on YouTube as well. And thank you if you are watching this on the replay. Thank you for taking 49 minutes out of your day to join us. Really enjoyed listening in. Great points made, Misbah. Thank you so much. And that is it. I hope you all enjoy the weekend and stay cool. And I'll see you next time.